Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks as if Nancy Pelosi is officially screwed. And no, I'm not joking. You see, just the other day, Republican Senator Josh Hawley introduced what might be the single most hilarious as well as important piece of legislation in modern American history. It's called the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments Act, also known as the Pelosi Act. And so, what this bill would do is prevent congressional stock trading. So, of course, it had to be named after none other than the single most corrupt member of Congress, Nancy Pelosi. Now, in case you forgot, Nancy Pelosi has spent the last 38 years using her position in Congress to enrich herself beyond belief. Nancy Pelosi's congressional salary, right around $174,000 per year. But you want to know what her net worth is? $267 million. I'll say it again, $267 million. And so if you want to do the math on that, even if Nancy Pelosi had saved every last penny of her salary and never paid taxes, never bought food, never spent a dime, she still would have made less than 3% of what her current net worth is. So then the question becomes, where did the other 97% come from? Well, folks, it came from the stock market. And let's just say that it's people like Nancy Pelosi that this new legislation is targeting head on. But you know what? It's not just Nancy Pelosi either. In fact, take a look at this list of the top 10 wealthiest sitting United States lawmakers who didn't earn their money through family inheritance or through private sector success. You've got Nancy Pelosi with $267 million, Dean Phillips with $24 million, Elizabeth Warren with $9 million, Ron Wyden with $4.7 million, Chellie Pingree with $3.6 million, Chuck Schumer with $2.3 million, Raphael Warnock with $2 million, Tim Kaine with $2 million, Cory Booker with $2 million, and Amy Klobuchar with $2 million. And once again, folks, these are the top 10 wealthiest sitting United States representatives that didn't earn their money in the private sector or through familial inheritance, meaning that pretty much all of these people have been up to some pretty shady behavior in the stock market. And now, do you guys notice anything a little bit weird about this list of wealthy and corrupt politicians? That's right. Every single one of them is a Democrat. So just in case you were still unsure which political party has spent decades turning Congress into a casino, there is your answer. These people didn't invent anything, they didn't run successful companies, they didn't build anything of value, but they sure as hell made millions of dollars in the stock market. All while sitting on various legislative committees getting early access to confidential economic information and writing the very laws that affect those markets. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not public service, that is legalized corruption. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is why the Pelosi Act is so important. These people need to be shut down. This bill would entirely ban lawmakers and their spouses from owning or trading individual stocks while in office. And if they break the law, they have to return every penny of their profits back to the American taxpayers. In other words, the era of congressional day trading is coming to an end. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just take a look at Paul Pelosi, who's Nancy Pelosi's husband. This man has been making suspiciously timed perfect trades for years now, to the tune, by the way, of tens of millions of dollars. And so, folks, let's be honest here. These people aren't investing. No, they're profiting off of the rest of us while we foot the bill for their insider access and corrupt behavior. But let's be very clear, this bill isn't even really about politics. This bill is about stopping congressional corruption. 84% of Americans nationwide support shutting down congressional stock trading, And what's funny is that it's been the Democrats who have been pretending to champion this cause for years. But now that President Trump and the congressional Republicans are actually doing it, the Democrats have entirely flipped, and now they're all melting down. That's a little bit weird. It's almost like the Democrats were lying by pretending to care about this. Ladies and gentlemen, just another example of the never-ending progressive performative theatrics. All talk and no action. And so here's the deal. President Trump himself has even endorsed the idea of banning congressional stock trading because it aligns perfectly with the America First agenda of taking power away from the elites and finally giving it back to the people, to the American taxpayer. The Nancy Pelosi class of corrupt career politicians, the ones who fly private jets to climate change conferences while insider trading, their days of exploiting the system, rigging the rules, and walking away with massive profits while the rest of us struggle, that era is coming to an end. Really, the Pelosi Act isn't just about Nancy Pelosi. It's about ending the culture of unearned wealth, unearned privilege, and unchecked insider access that has ruled Washington, D.C. for decades. The America First movement is about real accountability and real American patriotism, as opposed to profiting off of the American taxpayer like a corrupt parasite, as many of these senior-ranking Democrats have been doing for years. Now that President Trump and the congressional Republicans have taken control of the country, the days where these corrupt Washington, D.C. swamp beasts get to bleed this nation dry with complete and total impunity have come to an end. Rather than serving the American people, these corrupt progressives have been abusing their positions of power to serve themselves, and that, ladies and gentlemen, has got to come to an end. At long last, our elected representatives are going to have to serve the American people as opposed to serving their own pocketbooks. And so, folks, that is why this new Pelosi bill is so important, because what it does is finally put America first. Now, folks, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. As I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle here on YouTube. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.